Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a episode of Baka. This is a regular episode where every 2 weeks we come together after watching an anime that we have chosen for you, for us. We watch it, we review it, we discuss it, and we turn the over ideas to our audience to take it further and beyond what three idiots can do. That's the concept of the show. And we watched one of the new animes that are showing up on Netflix, which is investing heavily in new anime. Guys, I don't know if anyone else has seen it. There's that gambling one. There's Children of the Whales, Killer Bee. They're rocking so many new animes, and it's kind of blowing my mind. But we watched ID0. But before we start discussing that, let me introduce my co-host. My name is Troy, and with me we have the Optimus to my Prime, Jeremy.
Why does he get to be Optimus Prime?
You know why he gets to be Optimus Prime. Yeah. Also, Jeremy's a cartoon tonight if you're watching the YouTube version.
A cartoon with better eyebrows. Look at those things. Man.
art drawn by your lovely wife, by the way. So, I'm glad her artwork gets to be featured. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good tonight. Except for my stupid webcam for anybody that's video. Yeah. Every now and then the USBs on this computer just crap out. So I have to, that was great. Fun. Other than that, though, you have your choice. Do you want to hear about Exorcism.io, Minecraft, or Married with Children?
Married with Children. I can't help myself.
I was just about to say the same thing.
So I remember for years when I was growing up, I would see this on in the corner of my eye, right? Every now and then you'd run across it, but it was so irritating, and the main character was so off-putting. And the whole family was so off-putting that I never gave it a chance at all. And I got to tell you that my preconceived notions were absolutely wrong. This show is really, really funny. There's this really great snarky relationship that the entire family has. It's really enjoyable to watch. They've got some good moments where you see that it's all just in good humor. It's nice.
It's really kind of a proto Family Guy and American Dad, and where those shows with dumb husbands, smarter wives, but it wasn't in cartoon form. Like, those have to use cartoons to get away with their stuff. Married with Children was doing it in front of your camera. Yeah,
I think it might have gotten a little bit of Archie Bunker, trying to kind of pick up right on the coattails of that.
Nice. A little less racist.
No, a little bit less to the moon with you, to the moon as well.
We also have the star to my scream, Jason. How are you?
Oh, I love it. Did you see the little gif where Starscream turns into a gun that another Transformer's holding? I saw that not that long ago. It's great.
Wait, Starscream's a jet.
I know, but he turned into a gun.
It's the main bad guy's the gun.
So if we're going old school Transformers, if there was a Decepticon, it had to be probably Starscream, because he normally lived through literally every encounter because he always ran away.
Right, okay. Well, at least we agree on why he lived. I was about to say he was a coward. Oh, you know that. Okay, we're fine.
Yeah, he's like the TIE fighter of Transformers.
Run away today to run away another day.
That's right.
What you been up to, Jason?
Taking care of the family because the wife broke her foot. So it's been very little game time and recreation and more.
I don't
real
believe
life.
it for a second. What have you been playing?
Well, Troy wrecked me at X-Wing. Yeah. All right, it was a pretty close game.
Yeah, it was literally, if you had one more hit in that dice roll, we would have had a tie. We both had it at the same time. Yeah, we've been playing that miniatures game. I'm falling in love with it all over again. I'm not really a miniatures guy, but I love flying planes, so this really gets to me.
Yeah, and as I was talking to you about it, the whole idea of this mental battle between, okay, where is he going to go? But where does he think I'm going to go? So if he thinks I'm going to go where he's going to go, but then I'm going to go where he doesn't think I'm going to go, but I'm going to go there anyway. Like, it's just, especially when it gets down to those last few pieces where you're just like, oh, if I mess this up, I'm dead.
There was one time you went to the bathroom and I laid down my move things and I was like, no, that can't be right. I redid it like 3 times. Just getting in my own head. I watched an anime besides the anime we actually watched. The one I mentioned on Netflix, the gambling one, I think it's Kakaguri. It translates to gambling addict.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not for this podcast because it really ties in gambling addiction to sexual kinks.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, and not in the funny way Food Wars does it. But I did enjoy the mind battles of the games because basically a girl transfers to a school where, hey, the school board runs the school and everything's run by gambling. Because of course.
That looked so awful. I didn't give it a chance. Should I?
I don't know if you guys would like it. There's not a whole lot to the story. The only thing, like I said, I enjoyed is almost every episode she goes into a gambling battle. It's a different game, and I wanted to see poker, and there's only one version of poker that showed up. But basically, the other side is cheating automatically. Like they're always like, "Hey, come play my game," and they always have a cheat ready. And so she has to start the game, figure out the cheat, and then find a way to reverse the cheat. And she refuses to win automatically. So even if she knows how to anti-cheat the game, so she automatically wins, she won't. She only anti-cheats until the game's balanced again because she's addicted to the risk of winning or losing. But I like that mind game of like in the first one, they're playing a weird version of paper, rock, scissors, and that one girl's cheating. She has to figure out, okay, how is she cheating? And at the end, she explains, "Oh, I figured it out this way." I like that kind of stuff. The characters didn't grow at all. I don't even think the battle changed anything, but I did enjoy those moments.
No Game, No Life has a little bit of a similar premise when it comes to the games. The stakes can increase. He always seems to have stuff up his sleeves. You might like that, although it's a little bit like a different kind of kinky.
Yeah. Well, and it really used it for fan service too. Nothing's ever going to top Death Note of mental battles, as far as I'm concerned. But maybe someday. But that's not the anime we're here to talk about. So I'm going to move us on. We are going to talk about, is it ID0 or ID0?
ID0.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's ID0. The main character's name is ID0. It was directed by Goro Taniguchi, who did S Cryed, which kind of makes sense. That it had an S Cryed feel to me. But he also directed Code Geass and Space Dandy. That's
Space Dandy.
Space Dandy's great.
I know, but it's wow.
It was written by Yosuke Kuroda, who did anime writing credits on Trigun and S Cryed, and the studio is Sans again, who didn't really have anything that I recognized. Probably others would, but only Black Rock Shooter was a name I recognized. So the studio doesn't have a lot of weight behind it, but the director really did. And so let's go ahead and start with our non-spoiler reviews. Jason, you picked it. You start us off.
I mentioned earlier in the week that if I had like stuck to that three episode rule, this one wouldn't pass. I did not find the characters engaging or interesting, and I also didn't find the initial story unique. And also they were a little slow. They weren't as bad as other anime, but I mean, it was just like, oh, okay, this is. I would not have stuck with this one if I hadn't picked it for the show. And I'm glad I did, because I actually really enjoyed a lot of the storytelling elements. I enjoyed the characters as they grew. I kind of got attached to each of the characters for their own reasons. They weren't all-star performances. I can't say that this is like high and above other animes that I've seen, but I really had fun time with this anime.
I kind of have to say it's very, very similar. I would never have given this a chance if it wasn't an assignment, and I'm really sad about that. It kind of shows me that maybe I have a little bit of a problem when it comes to looking at the scores on my anime list and stuff, because I think this got like a 6.8 or a 6.4 or something, and I usually don't even bother to look at them if they're less than around a 7.5, and I would have missed this because I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It did a good job with the CGI too, I thought.
For me, I was at the start. I was right with you guys. Actually, when Jason picked this, I kind of cringed because I had always scrolled past this on my Netflix list of, oh, that looks like garbage. That looks like garbage they threw on Netflix to fill in space on Netflix. And I was surprised that it was not that. With that said, I think I can kind of come in the lowest with everybody. While it was better than I thought, and I did, for the most part, enjoy it, I found the storytelling to be a little janky, a little blunt, the characters to be a little one note, but the concepts in it are awesome. I just kind of wish they had explored some of the themes instead of just going with the bare minimum on them, but we'll get into that more. I'm excited for this one. Let's talk about the opening and closing songs. Jason, how do you feel about the opening and closing songs?
The opening I enjoyed. It actually reminded me of the Princess Principal opening. Just kind of kind of the jazzy hit at the beginning, and then just kind of rocks into the, kind of showing each of the characters. And the ending, I think I said some very uncouth things in our chat. I hope I never have to hear that singer ever again in my life.
Yeah. Did you stick around for the after credits snippets on every one of them?
So I watched a majority of it on my PC because I normally watch our animes on my phone, and so I was able to skip right past the ending credits every time.
Yeah, I didn't realize once again that there was a snippet afterwards, and so as soon as the guy started singing, I was like, off!
Kill it with fire!
Yes. Yep.
What about you, Troy?
Wait, hold on. I found it. This outro for the show can die in a fire on its birthday after it slipped down the stairs and broke its legs and arms. Jason, 2018. The intro reminded me of a J-pop version of the Cowboy Bebop intro, with less, with the music being less jazz and more J-pop, but a little bit of jazz still kind of thrown in. But very similar visuals of like characters flashing on the screen and stuff like that. The ships kind of going by. So I like that. The outro, I didn't like the music of the outro. I agree with you that the visuals were interesting because they reminded me of like a 90s animated movie, like Secret of Nim ending credits. The way they would have that. Someone who knows art describe what kind of colors those are. Pastels?
Yeah.
Colored pencils, shaded kind of stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. I also did not realize there were snippets at the end until about halfway through. If there was stuff I missed, hopefully, like, because there's a few things I have questions on, and I hope the answer wasn't there in the snippets.
So those snippets, there's a couple of them.
Yeah, so you'll have to fill me in if there's stuff I missed. But about halfway through, I did realize and start watching them on purpose. Which, again, that made me mad because then I had to sit through the ending credits that I wanted to skip.
Aw, you can't skip it?
Yeah.
Aw.
I mean, I could, but then I have to pick up the controller and like forward 5
then
frames.
You deserve the pain.
But Netflix, though, does have a nice skip intro button whenever an intro starts on a show now, and it's
it's lovely.
Netflix, skip.
Yeah. Okay, so that will end our non-spoiler section. We are going into our spoiler section. If you do not want to know things about this anime and we have convinced you to go watch it, now is the point to turn off this podcast. I'm not sure why you turned it on, but I'm sad to tell you to go. Or stay with us and get spoiled. I don't care. So let's, guys. I don't need a little help describing this world. There's a rock called Ori Cult.
It's literally the pinnacle of human existence at this point in the future. Because it's used for a lot of things.
Okay, but the two main things we need to know about it is you can use it to teleport because it has space-time properties, and you can use it to download your consciousness into machines.
Yes.
And that's really the two things they explore in this anime. Anything else about it that we should know?
It seems to be a currency as well.
Oh yeah, it's the human economy is now based on it.
Right.
It's become so prevalent.
So like silver then.
Right. So yeah, and now we travel through space because of this rock, and mostly it's the story focuses on a group of miners. No, not underage people. People who mine rocks out of.
But as a side note, that is one of my favorite scenes of Galaxy Quest. Not miners, miners.
The anime starts off with a college expedition that's mining, or there's a college student there named Maya, and basically the mining thing goes wrong. The drill blows up, and her eye machine, which is the robot. Okay, we're gonna have to stop there and talk about eye machines. So eye machines are the robots you can download your consciousness into, and they're very much their own character of this world. So we should talk about what your guys' thoughts on the eye machines are.
I thought they were really cool, and I think one of the reasons I think it was a neat, not just a concept, but I liked the consistency the artists used with it. Because if you notice, every single eye machine, whether it's doctored up in armor or if it's just the base version, they all have very similar parts and also have the exact same infrastructure on the inside. And I thought that was a really neat detail to keep fluent throughout the anime. So anyways, these things are like mech size. And when I say mech size, I mean they're probably, 2 stories tall, story and a half tall?
Bigger.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. Because in the ship, they're like 2 stories tall from their waist compared to them. Even larger than that.
60,
Probably,
70, 80 feet tall.
Yeah, they're enormous. But their main job is for being able to not only traverse the cosmos, but also be able to do dangerous things like mining asteroids. And Maya is downloaded into one of these things, and I think she is on a geologist's apprenticeship. So so that's why she's there. Yeah, that's why she's there, is because of her geological expertise. But she's also in training because one of the other dudes was also her teacher. So,
right. Jeremy, your thoughts on the eye machines?
Oh, I loved them. This was like the highlight of this whole series for me. Every time the eye machines came on screen, it was so cool. It's like looking at the internal structure of a BattleTech mech. I just love it. And I think this is where CGI really delivers as well, is when you're dealing with these mechanical parts like this. The consistency of design, like Jason was saying, and everything, CGI makes it look so good.
Now,
those mechanical parts.
Tell me, because I found it. I found it better, because normally when they use CGI, especially with mechs in anime, where they do traditional drawing and then they slap CGI in it, because everything was CGI, it felt way more fluid and transparent as far as a difference between the two.
You mean as far as it didn't seem out of place? It seemed like they belong? Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I do think, and I know I want to talk more about this later, but I do think that the choice of CGI, well, it worked with the anime characters themselves. The real strength, I thought, was in how it portrayed the eye machines. And since they're kind of characters in their own way, and we get to know a few of them as individuals that don't have bodies.
Spoiler alert!
Right?
I think we gave it spoiler alert. We're good.
Yeah. It really, it's worth it to have as much of this anime as there is in CGI, because the machines are actually main characters themselves. And I think that that's fair at that point. I also loved how they had a sense of uniqueness and identity about them. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit between scarves and breasts, but
now's a good time to bring it up as any.
Yeah. It's I thought that they did a really good job giving them that baseline, but then distinguishing between them in such interesting ways. Like they could have all looked the same, like the stock models, but they made them look like unique individual characters, and they also justified it with illegal modifications and stuff. It was really cool. It was well done, well thought out, well designed.
I like the generic ones. I thought the specialty ones, the main character ones, looked like knockoff Transformers. And in fact, one of them actually does transform, and I was like, really?
Hey, that was cool though because it was a one-off.
I like
earned it.
I like seeing the spines, and but like especially Grayman's, I think bothered me the most because I'm like, man, you look right out of a Transformers cartoon.
Well, yeah. Why did he have 6 arms on his shoulders?
I know that was fine. But it's something about the face. The face, their faces look very Transformery.
But they didn't move like Transformers.
How do Transformers move?
Well, whenever they
Michael
talk.
Bay?
Well, no, even in the old cartoons, like the face mask would move up and down when they talked.
It's true.
I guess Transformers have mouths, and a lot of them. I guess. But they, I mean, the scarf makes me angry. A robot can have breasts, especially when we learn like that's her identity. That she is only that robot. She does not have a human body to go back to. So, like Jeremy had pointed out earlier to us, this is use of personal identification. Like, so they are accentuating. Mm-hmm. You don't need a scarf. It's not cold in space. Sonic the Hedgehog, you don't need a scarf.
Okay, hold on. Going back, since you did this to me, I get to do it to you. Here's Troy's quote from Tuesday, 7:22 a.m. And I hate real scarves, so don't get me even get me started.
That sounds like me. So yeah. Yeah. I remember my brother came in from walking from the car to the house one time, and he had a scarf on. And I'm like, you went from the car to the house. It's not even a minute walk. And did you wear the scarf in the car, or did you put on the scarf for the 5 feet to the door because you didn't want your neck to be cold for 5 seconds? And I spent the rest of the night yelling at him. And there's a reason he doesn't hang out with me.
He just shoots you in Call of Duty now.
Yeah. So let's go over to talking about Maya. Jason kind of mentioned that she was on this mining expedition. Things go wrong. I think her character design is adorable. Mm-hmm. But what do you guys think of her character?
I think it's really simple. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what I enjoyed about it is they took this tropey good guy girl character, and they did a couple things actually I liked. One, they didn't make her the superhero of everything. In fact, in many cases, she would say something like really tropey, like, and we can save the human race, and everyone would just laugh at her. And I thought
that's fair.
That was that was great. So she definitely drove the story along. And she was kind of our narrator, because I think she was meant to be the eyes of the audience.
Yeah, she is. She's 100% the audience.
Mm-hmm. But she was so generic. I didn't. She was one of the few characters that I didn't get a big attachment to.
Yeah, I thought that they did make another really good decision with her, which surprised me. When the anime starts in the first episode and she's inside of that mech, they're commenting about how she has such a hard time controlling the eye machines. And I thought, oh, wow, yeah, by the end of this series, she's probably going to be in the best suit of armor on that thing, and she's going to be kicking serious butt everywhere, destroying everything. And they did not go that route. They kept her clumsy. They kept her... so that when she was in the eye machine, it was very short bursts and it was never upgraded. And I like that. She did not become the everything character either. Other people got to fill those roles.
I think I agree with everything you guys have said. My one real complaint about her is it seemed just a little too cliche to have her care so much about Ido.
I agree with that. That seemed a little bit unfounded.
And it's a trope, and I mean, I remember Gundam Wing, same thing. Girl character meets angry boy mech pilot, and is like, he's so broken, I have to fix him. I love him. And I was fine with it then, but I was 13 then, and I'm at this point. I'm like, he doesn't even have a human body. Why do you even care?
Is it that you weren't able to ship him because you couldn't picture the robot with this girl who doesn't look like a college student?
I think it's more the fact that she was a college student. He's like a 60-year-old man.
No, he's in a robot body. He's immortal.
Sure.
Sure.
No, and actually, it was just because it's so tropey.
Yeah.
It was like from episode 1. I'm like, please don't let her just fall in love with main character because he's main character, and then they did.
I don't know though. Was it love or was it pity and compassion?
They never go out of their way
It felt-
to find it, but if you
It
want
felt
to
very
ship it,
friendshipy.
Yeah.
It felt very friendshipy to me.
other characters make comments about their relationship.
Those came across as like friendly jabbing and jesting, though. I didn't take them as serious evaluations, especially because they came from usually like Rick or somebody else that was just mocking.
Yeah, and I don't never reciprocate it either.
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
That's true. But main characters never do because they're warriors and they have to.
They got to be
Save the
angsty.
universe while being humble and not claiming it.
So after this mining accident, which throws her eye machine, which is the mechs, into space, she's saved by the excavators, which is a pirate crew of miners, again not underage, and they save her and they bring her back to the ship.
And so, also to be clear, she can't go back to her body because she's now too far away.
The professor ran back to the ship and they just ran.
Right.
Because they weren't supposed to be there. They're actually doing illegal activity, we find out, and they just run away. And we find out later they actually just dump her body into space, figuring, oh, she gone.
So I didn't get the impression that what they were doing was illegal. He did sell her information illegally later, but I think they made the comment about how these orichalc deposits are usually accompanied by massive storms that are proportionate to the amount of orichalc deposited in the asteroid or wherever it's located. And so he was trying to save his vessel before it got engulfed by the storm. And so he fled.
But don't they mention, I didn't think he sold her information. He sold mining information, and she's the accomplice to that.
No, she's the one that came up with the coordinates of how to mine this particular
which he
location. And he sold her data about how to mine it.
Okay, so when you're saying her data, you're not meaning her consciousness. Sorry,
No.
I thought you meant he sold her personality. And I'm like,
no.
You don't need to be in trouble for that.
No. He just catapulted her out because he didn't want to get in trouble for leaving her behind.
They bring her aboard the ship, and they're basically like, hey, we'll help you get your body back, but you're going to have to work for us. And then they go on a job, and they all jump on a space motorcycle. I hate the space motorcycle. I love the drills. The drills are really cool. And then there's also these motorcycles. And also Rick can turn into a race car spaceship.
Well, I kind of like Rick's transformation because all it does is just kind of line up his body and
I
tilt
actually
his
feel
head.
like Rick's because he he goes feet first and he bends his head down. But the motorcycle I hate.
I agree with that. It just, as soon as I saw the motorcycle, I was like, oh, that cheapens this so much.
I say, why? Why do you have to be a motorcycle?
There's so many technology, especially like the main ship, the Stalti that they're on, which is a really cool ship because it's not sleek and glamorous. It is functional. And I love sci-fi technology that's functional.
Mm-hmm.
The arms of the Stalti, I was like,
kind of silly.
Well, no, I saw him, I was like, yep, this is anime.
yeah. It's like Outlaw Star.
Wait, the shield? You guys didn't like the shields?
No, I like the shields. It was the fact that they were on arms that had to move.
Well, these arms were like multi-purpose. And
they could throw the mining rig.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird because if you're going to do something like that in space, you need to stabilize it by countering with another arm, and they never did that. Neither did they fire anything. That ship should have reacted against its own throw.
Because they have Oracle.
Yeah, right. But I did want to argue in favor of the motorcycles for just a second. Motorcycles advocate. In the same concept as the scarf and the breasts, right? As a sense of identity because they can't change into humans.
Hold on. You can't just throw that out there for our audience and not give any sort of context.
Yeah, they don't want a sense of mystery. That's like the best part about it.
If you're going to argue him back, you need to do it quick. We got to move.
So the robots, some of these robots are stuck in the robot bodies and they're so massive. So to have a vessel that would seem like a motorcycle would give them another avenue of expression where they're not like the whole world is built for something much smaller than I am. Instead, they're like, yeah, no, I've got a motorcycle. This is cool. I'm flying around on something built for me. So I could see it that way. No, you still can't see it?
No, and for one reason,
Hmm.
they had the huge handlebars.
To hang on, because you're going through space.
No, that's just stupid.
All right, let's move on.
You have a motorcycle, but you had no reason for the huge. What are they called? I forget. Sorry.
Awesome. That's what they're called.
No, don't they are they monkey bars? No, gorilla handles or something like that?
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They're really cool, man.
and so we get to see them how they mine, which is they karate fight.
That's not true.
Only one of them ninja fights the asteroids.
And they only did it like twice.
And with daggers. I love that he has daggers. They have all this awesome drilling, mining equipment, and he's got little explosive daggers that he throws, and it works.
I hate you
He ninja kicks that drill.
Yeah, he does.
both. What are you talking about?
In the first episode, he kicks the drill to get it to activate and push down. And his hands glow, which are apparently also are used for drilling.
Just
And
for
they-
stabbing rock.
They also
Not
have
really drilling.
Gatling guns for drilling, and
Yeah.
He's excavator Ido, though. Come on. He's
But
got
we
to
get-
have something.
what happens? Okay, so what happens is they show how they mine, which is basically they dig till they get to this oracle, this shiny red crystal rock, and then they tap another red rock to it, which teleports them to another red rock, and they can teleport it out of the asteroid and then collect it. Again, teleporting with this is really a super major important theme. So that's really what they're showing. They're called Miguel jumps.
Yeah, Miguel. Miguel. Also, did they call him Ido in the dubbed version? Because they called him Ito in the subbed version.
No, I said Ido in the dub.
I got to listen to like a quarter of one episode halfway into the series in dubbed, and I wanted to rip my ears off because they, especially the soldier girl, so bad. Like the difference is astounding as far as characters being believable.
Huh.
Oh,
I
Todd
didn't get that.
Habercorn does Ido, and I really love his English dub work. He's Natsu in Fairy Tale, and he can do crazy wild warrior, or he can do smart, educated guy. And Ido kind of falls in between. And I thought it was one of my favorite things about this anime was I just liked hearing him do voices. He was Greed in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Not Greed. He was the prince that became Greed. Prince. But
Prince Greed.
He's great. But now that we're there, let's talk about Ido, who we've met, who ninja kicks stuff and daggers. He wears the scarf, and I've made ourselves clear on that. But what I do love about him is he has that coattail thing. I don't know if it even is attached or it just hovers behind him, but he magnetizes all his knives to it. I like that.
It seems like he uses way more knives than he carries, but it is cool that they at least gave him something to carry them in.
Yeah, especially since they explode. But at one
Yeah.
point, they do show he has wires so he can pull them back. But you
I-
never see
yeah,
the
you're
wires
right.
during regular battles. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, there's one that you can see that wires, but that's near the end.
Okay, but the character Ido, and do we? I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about the other part of him, that's fine. But
I really like this character just because not only is he mysterious in the beginning and conflicted, but I like where they went with him and his reveal. I like this interesting idea that you've got a human persona that wakes up with amnesia in a robot. It's like, well, what do you do with that? Like, you wake up in a robot. What do you do? And it's funny because one of the first things he does is look for some sort of identification. So what that means is that he's got some memories, or at least muscle memory type knowledge as far as like subsystems and stuff, or at least how to use the technology. But I liked how he would be like a little angsty and like, I'll leave you behind if there's no chance to save you. But then like he's all heart in his actions. So he kind of won me over with that.
Yeah, he was an interesting character. In the subbed version, he comes across as being sort of robotic and apathetic. Like, he fits being an eye machine. He doesn't, at least for me, he didn't come across as having hardly any emotion most of the time. There was only key moments where he had any kind of emotion. And so, I thought it was really, really well done. And I got a really strong vibe of Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie with
Commando.
bars. No. You remember the movie where he's oh God, I can't believe I can't remember what it's called. It's where he oh, come on, he pulls the big thing out of his nose.
Oh, Total Recall.
Thank you. Yes. I kept wanting to say Martian, but
I just wanted
you jerk. But yeah, I really got that from it, as this was another way to tell that story of what happens if you take a person who is very, very different in their second opportunity to make choices. What are they going to do then? And I like that. I really liked what they did with this character, and how even who he was before kind of evolved a little bit. He had a lot of character growth, whether you look at it from his original persona or from the point at which we're introduced to him in the anime. He's a really fun character.
You actually know he has a lot of character growth because the character literally calls out, he's growing a lot.
See, now, I did not get that in the subbed version. They did not call things out like that.
I think one of the things also that grew on me as far as Ido is it felt very Revan reveal-ish.
Revan reveal-ish, what's that?
With the twist.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Revan. I gotcha.
I actually found him more interesting once you get the twist, especially, I'm not still 100% sure how true things were. We'll get to that. As far as for the most part, he's a good main character, but he feels a little tropey of, I'm a warrior and I'm here to get the job done, but I actually have a heart. And
no, he's a miner.
Yeah, God, he's there to get the job done, though. You're right there.
Excavator Ido, come on.
He was more heartless in the beginning because he's like, I don't care who I was. I'm just here. I just love mining so much. I just want to mine all day. and then, like, once he started seeing he has a past, he actually kind of becomes a person again. He's like, wait, I was a person. I could be a person. And then he gets a little more interesting, but he's all right for me. He's somewhere in the middle. I feel like that way about a lot of things in here. It's not bad. It wasn't great.
I do think that they justified why he is so focused on being a miner.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, they did a good job of explling that.
I also
but it was kind of silly.
once he did get that first flashback, I liked how misleading the dialogue was, because it almost made you feel like this thing that came out was his daughter.
Right? Yes.
So
he's one of the only characters who gets growth too, I think.
I don't know. I think a lot of them get growth.
Yeah, but he's definitely the one that got the most.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's do some more characters. Let's start with Rick. How did Rick grow?
Rick grew because by the end he was friends with Fa. You didn't even write the dog's name down.
Fa-Loser.
He was friends with Fa-Loser.
I didn't even get that they weren't friends. At the ending when they're like, made up, I was like, they didn't like each other?
Fa-Loser was always beating up on him. Yeah.
But the dog was always jumping around. I didn't notice it was pointed at Rick only. I've totally missed it. 100%.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it was crazy like that.
He also had some decent character development when he was exploring, like, I'm not just a downloaded consciousness, but I'm a backup of a downloaded consciousness.
Wait, that was him telling his past.
No. But the question was,
changed about him.
What the question was is, does that make me a person? Like, am I any less of a person than, say, Ido, or am I just a clone kind of thing? And
okay, this encapsulates my issues with this thing. Is that they that's a great theme, a great thing to bring up. They don't explore it though. Rick before that conversation and Rick after that conversation, there's no difference between those two Ricks.
You needed him to call it out, huh?
No, I actually didn't like that he called it out. I didn't like that the story doesn't explore it. Like, there's no moment of him self-doubting himself in the middle of a mission, or like, man, or encountering another's, or anything that makes him reflect on it. It's literally one conversation where he's like, hey, just so you know, I'm a downloaded copy of a real person. I don't actually know if I'm a person. What do you think? She's like, yeah, you are. Okay, let's keep going on with the story then.
Well, I think there were 2 times that something was said in that regard. There was a time where he thought he was going to be left behind, right? And he looks at every day as, well, I'm alive another day. Life is great. Because why would he have ever even gotten an opportunity to live? He was just a backup. He never would have been able to exist, because the moment that the driver came out of the crash, the backup gets turned off, right? So for him, I don't think that it's a matter of him expressing it externally as some big change. I think it's us learning more and more about what he's really thinking and what he's like, rather than, I guess, do you see what I'm saying? Where it's more of
I feel like
an arc of our understanding of him.
You're taking the concept and building on it where the story didn't.
That's fair.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess
it's because it's a really cool concept. I love the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see what they did with it.
But I'm not stating anything that the anime didn't show us. So I don't think I'm building anything on it. I'm just showing what they showed us and saying that my understanding of him changed drastically from the beginning through the middle and to the end. And that's an arc. Even if it wasn't him changing, it was me understanding him, like a gradual reveal. And to me, I think that that's just as valuable.
I'm not sure you can call that character development, though.
Well, I think it's mincing words.
I do,
because there's animes that are built on that.
I see your point that it has value to a viewer that could substitute for a character arc. I guess I just wanted to see, because it's such a cool theme, I think there's more potential there. And there's a lot of ideas and themes that this anime brings up that they don't really explore very much, that I wish they had.
Yeah.
And Rick's being a copy, that could be a whole anime. He could have his own.
That's what I was going to say, is to really cover that theme, you would need to do what you did with Ito here. And I think that this was supposed to be Ito's story. And maybe if it's something that people liked enough, maybe they planned on exploring the rest, or a spinoff or something. I don't know.
Okay. So,
I agree with both of you.
Okay. I dominated the conversation to Rick. So I want you guys to be able to say what you liked about Rick.
I didn't particularly like Rick. I thought he was an okay character, part of the group. He had heart. He was kind of the comic relief a little bit, but I didn't connect with him.
I liked Rick because of being the comic relief, but also because of how positive he was. Nothing ever got him down. I mean, he knew, like Ito and Carla and Greyman, that every moment could be his last out there because he has no body to go back into. And yet of them, he was the one right up there with Ito taking chances. And yet there was nothing to motivate him the way Ito had this hidden motivation pushing him toward the Oricult. Rick was just like, I'm alive, I'm happy, I want to enjoy life. I was a racer, and so adrenaline, even though I don't have hormones, the concept of adrenaline gets me going. And so just his approach to life, his approach to the entire thing was constantly keeping everything upbeat. And I think some of the funniest scenes for me were when they're in real space, or their fake space, the cyberspace thing they do. And Rick is like, you see his hand slowly like creeping around the shoulder of the soldier girl, and you're like, he's a robot. Right? He's never going to score. There's no possible, any kind of relationship physically. And yet he's still trying to carry out these physical actions while his avatar is a robot in this virtual space. And just how silly that was really great. It was refreshing in those moments where the show did seem to get a little bit more serious, take itself more seriously. You always had Rick making things light again.
Okay. Guys, the other excavator, the one we meet is Carla, who's their info broker, basically, their information specialist. What'd you think of her and her boobs?
Yeah, this is where the boobs are.
Okay, they're not actually super gratuitous. It's just
no, they're not.
Dented out chest plate.
Yeah, I was so confused by that. But besides that, I actually really enjoyed her character. I thought she was an interesting, conflicted character that felt like she could turn at any moment about halfway through, which made her compelling, especially near the end, where she's kind of having this, like, what do I do? Do I stay true to my friends, or do I use my own selfish motivations, or maybe I can kind of do both? So I liked, and I really liked her backstory. I liked her backstory that she was this selfish entrepreneur that ended up getting dealt a really bad hand, and she had to make the best of it. And it kind of changed her. And I loved Gray Man's speech to her, where he's like, "That's great. You could be giving me the most valuable information on the planet, but if I don't trust you, I'm not gonna do what you say." And that kind of hit her for a whirl. And I thought she had a decent amount of character growth in this anime, and I think what she could do and her role on the team was definitely earned.
Yeah, I think that Carla, everything you said, and I think that Carla was an example of how the diversity of characters and roles that they had here made the whole anime a lot better. So individually, maybe the characters, like, she was cool, but she certainly doesn't stand out as one of the most interesting characters for me. I really liked her tech suite that she had installed in her eye machine, and I love how later on, when it has to be replaced, she just gets a run-of-the-mill eye machine. And that's when you realize just how much was invested and how much was at stake whenever she took her old one out, that was her body for 10 years. But having so many different unique characters that came from different origins, wound up in this situation of being Evertrancers stuck inside these eye machines for different reasons, and then how they behaved differently when they were in their cyberspace. Just how different they all were made them all better. It was really, really cool to see.
She's not the least interesting female character.
No, she's not.
She's a little tropey. And to Jason, based on what you were saying, before that storyline starts for her with the whole betrayal, was there any signs that she would do that, or that she was that desperate for her body, other than her avatar being a human?
Well, she didn't know that her body existed, right? Mm-hmm. She assumed that she was like Ito and Rick, and I think it was more of a premonition's not the word. Maybe forecasting. It was a feeling I had because not only of her voice actress, but the way she came off. Everything was very business. Everything was very on the upbeat when things were could have been going down, or things were just neutral. She just kind of fit that role of, oh, you might turn on them someday, and I'm not sure why, but this will be interesting. I kind of got that from like episode 4 or 5.
I wonder if it had something to do with her being the broker and having the contacts, and so she could screw them over
at any moment. Yeah.
I guess I kind of saw her as the mother hen of the group, so I didn't see it coming at all. I do think when that arc starts for her, it was very interesting, but up until that moment, I was just like, oh, there's the information lady. She's also there. Okay. We'll stop with characters for a moment, and we will talk about. We get a flash of a man giving a seminar on eye machines. We find out later this is a flashback to like when eye machines were first invented. His audience, though, is a thing of tombstones. What is that?
Oh, God, I love that.
Are they tombstones? I mean, I assume they were.
So what I took from this was that those are the essentially augmented reality transmission points, but they happen to look like tombstones, which gives a sense of, to us, the viewer, the gravity of the situation and how just the negativity of it. And so I think it was purely aesthetic, and they were just relay points for augmented reality for his viewers.
There's a moment in the intro where the old man is like kneeling at one, though. And that's what really confused me. That you see him in the intro for a brief moment, and he's like kneeling at him like they are graves. And because I figured like, oh, this must be hollow recording devices, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And then I was thinking maybe this is the Elite's original graves, and wherever they are in other bodies, this is like what they use as a viewing point. But I don't actually know, because they do very much look like graves. They're out in the middle of an island or thing.
So, I mean, he obviously wouldn't be giving such a big speech about eye machines for the first time to a bunch of graves. So they have to be points of observation.
And there was a sound of applause when he came out in the eye machine.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I noticed is what looked like water underneath those buildings was also the exact same texture that they would give when the crew would load up an augmented reality.
Oh.
So I was wondering, was that an augmented reality that he was showing that in?
And I think that would have lessened the impact of the eye machine.
It comes out in an actual eye machine in that speech.
Right. I thought it was strange that the background.
That is weird, yeah.
It kind of looked like water, but it didn't. I wasn't convinced that it was water.
There's a lot that happens on Earth that isn't well explained.
Yeah, that's true.
After that scene, though, we find out about the Nomad Planet, which is this giant oricult mine. Just Miguel jumps into human space, and the excavator team is hired through a like third-party company that's rerouting for the main bad guy to go mine it. And there's 2 moons around it. Now, are those moons the Regive, whatever they're called? Okay.
That's no moon.
But basically, this thing has like super storms on it, but they're going to get paid a ton of money if they can get it. And Ida's like, "Yep, I want to do that." Maya has to go with him. They go down. Things go badly at first. He actually gets damaged. He's like, "Well, I guess I'm going to die." She's like, "That's crazy. We can just jump out of these robots back to our human bodies." He's like, "Oh yeah, I don't have a human body," and that's the first time it's mentioned that. Even though the fact it's been an episode and a half and there's been no time of him like, I'm gonna go put this robot away. Kind of saw that coming a little bit, but it does bring up all these issues of, are you a human if you don't have a human body, and what is the human soul, and they end up working together, fusing their eye machines.
Yeah. So eye machines, the eye machines are built of generic parts, and
they're all modular.
Yeah, he could just take her arms and legs.
Downloads her consciousness into like his backup memory so that she can ride along.
Yeah, she spits out a memory core of her own, a data archive, and then he just takes that and hooks it into himself as she's a piggyback.
It's kind of terrifying because if you think about it, it's kind of like the transporter idea of you're being killed and then remade alive, and then your original self is dead because you're killing your old consciousness, making a duplicate of it, and again, that's another thing. I was like, ooh, I can't wait to explore that, and then we don't really. But they managed to get to this giant oricult thing, and when he grabs onto it, his consciousness gets scrambled. He sees all these flashes of images, and Maya sees it too, and then they're able to ride out the explosion of the storm and carry it out into space and get it in. It's a cool looking scene. Okay.
You don't sound sincere.
No, it was. The problem. Okay, episode 3 starts, and a child emerges from the oricult, and no one has time to care.
It actually happened after the credits rolled in episode 2.
I had a feeling that was true, but
and they did care then.
Okay, so how did they react?
They were in shock. Everybody was quiet and pointing at the little girl in front of the oricult, and then it fades out as they're freaking out.
Because the next episode, they just like, I guess we'll just leave this here. They just leave it. No one no one takes care of this child. No one's really even talking about it. And to be fair, a lot happened. An alliance ship shows up and is attacking them, but they just kind of completely wave off the fact that this child is there. And we'll talk about that.
So I do think that there's a couple things that have to be taken note of. One is that Ido immediately vouches for the child. So Ido is immediately saying, "Oh, this is Or." In the subtitle, it's O-R-E. And this is Or. And she's my past. And so he has everybody convinced that they can trust what's going on because it's connected to him.
That's not happening yet.
Oh, yeah. He says it as soon as he sees her. Doesn't he?
No.
Or did it happen later?
It wasn't until after she...
Oh, that's when he started calling her Alice, wasn't it?
Yes. And that's when he's like, this is my past. They become super protective. They call her Aura in the English dub.
Oh, yeah, it's Or, O-R-E. Which I thought was funny because, she comes from an Or of Oracle. So
so the Alliance comes and they leave her with the space rock and they go and they fight the Alliance and the Alliance just overwhelms them and they all get arrested. And then the Alliance comes in to get the rock and they're like, oh, I guess we're losing this rock. And then the Alliance finds the little girl still in there and they're like, okay, we're taking the little girl too.
Now, what did you think about the fact that during this whole sequence of events, the Alliance actually managed to capture them, managed to undo every plan they had to leave? Like everything fell apart. Nothing they did was working. They didn't get some daring escape where they managed to get away on their own abilities. Something else had to intervene. What did you think about that?
I like that the anime doesn't set them up as like they're the best team of fighters, because then I would have not have believed they were just a mining group.
Exactly.
I would have been very upset about that. Even still, I think they're a little too strong for a group of miners. It seems a little weird that our heroes are just miners. It kind of reminds me of Armageddon, where it's like, we could train astronauts to mine, guys. That would be easier. There's no way.
How dare you equivocate this anime with freaking Armageddon?
They're both about drilling and miners, and just saying.
So I actually think that them being as powerful as they are is fairly legit, because they aren't like legitimate miners. They are pirates. Right. They come in, they steal it, they go to the black markets, they sell it, and they buy illegal modifications and weapons. And so, like, it kind of makes sense why they would have the illegal modifications that make them superior to everything.
I mean, if I had illegal modifications, I would be drop kicking drills as well.
It's interesting that the only ones who could really stand up to them were the military. A military model iMachine could stand up to them, and that's about it.
Right, and to be fair, like, the opponents Ido beats, other than we see him, he does practice with his throwing knives.
Ninja iMachine.
He never like really fights a lot of super highly trained soldiers, because we find out Ido is not like a former superhuman soldier. There's no reason he should be a super fighter. But he
was a super programmer.
But his ultimate evil villain is also, same level, so it's fine.
You got to keep in mind that this is sort of a computer or software interface. I mean, they talk about extending their senses and doing all kinds of other things which are based on programs. So while their consciousness is in the machines, there have to be autonomic systems running in the background. And him being what he was previously, having that academic background, I'm sure that he knows how to build a really good robot.
It's still speculative, and a military iMachine should be superior, which we see the military comes in and they take control of them. They get attacked by meteorites that just warp in and start attacking the Alliance ship and them, and they use the distraction to cut themselves away and warp away and rescue Alice. Well
in an already existing tunnel, Miguel tunnel, which was crazy.
That was later.
Was that later too? God dang it!
That's the other ship they get stuck on.
This moment intrigued me back into the anime, because I was at a point where it's just like, next episode. But then these rocks started warping in. I was like, why? Where are they coming from? Who's doing it? What purpose? Is it after the girl? It doesn't seem to be after the girl, but maybe it is after the girl. What is going on? And this is like, all of a sudden, all these questions started going in my head, and I was 100% invested, because I thought it was great, because I did like that they got arrested by the military. They were about to be drugged back to Earth.
I was so dismayed at this point because these first couple episodes are a little rough. That when the rocks warped in, I'm like, oh, they're not going to explain that either. I guess we'll just never know where rocks come. To be fair, they completely do, and this scene is much better looking back at it retrospectively than how I took it when I saw it, because I was like, oh, I guess rocks just show up now.
Wherever our band of idiots go.
It's like you and Troy have switched spots, Jason.
I know, right?
Amazing.
I am coming down harder on the anime than I mean, I think that's going to happen because you guys both liked it so much that
you just want to fight. all the things you say about not wanting to fight, you want to fight.
It is the point of the podcast. It doesn't matter. One of the soldiers gets caught. Her eye machine gets caught up in the teleportation, and they get away with her, and then her body also was in the wreckage that we also warped with. So
that was kind of weird. I mean, I understand that they even made a comment that her like colonel or whatever let the body go, but it just didn't make sense that little bit of the ship that they took with them in their jump just happened to have her body in it.
Oh, that's not going to be the least of coincidences with Lieutenant Amanza. And then, hey, look, I took my notes upside down on this page, so I had to flip my book around. Let's talk.
We are professionals.
I was going to say, ever the professional.
Guys, quick thoughts on Grayman and Claire. Grayman and Claire. Grayman.
They were fine. Claire really didn't seem to come into her own till later in the anime. Grayman didn't have a huge character arc or character development, but he did. I did like his backstory, and how he's kind of out of necessity has had to try and rebuild his life. I thought the extra arms on his eye machine were stupid, but I did think it was pretty bad action when he was holding multiple guns with him, though.
Yeah,
I like his arms.
But besides that, they were both fine.
I thought Claire was kind of like the hand that comes in and straightens the picture frame or puts the Post-it note a little bit to the left or something. Like, she's always there to just adjust something, but not really be a central character herself. From my perspective, she was just never that important. Grayman was very unique as a sort of, I really liked his back and forth with Maya and how he was constantly pointing out, yeah, you're whining a lot. You're not happy with the decisions that I'm making, but you don't have an alternative. If you give me an alternative, we'll talk about it. But until you have one, shut up. And I loved that because this dynamic that went back and forth between them, she then got to find out in one of the after credit scenes that he's not trying to be harsh. He's even like trying to apologize to make sure she understands. He's got nothing against her. He just wants to make sure that everything on the ship is going to be running for the benefit of everybody, not just reacting emotionally to whatever they're seeing. And so, yeah, he was interesting. I liked finding out what his name stood for, too.
Yeah, I did like the name thing. And he reminded me a lot of Jet from Cowboy Bebop, the guy who stays behind on the ship and just tries to keep everything running while everyone else is running off being heroic or crazy. He's just like, yeah, I need to make sure there's a place to come back to. I like that. And I mean, he's hard captain who also has a heart of gold. Like, he's like, we're not going to save the human race. You know you're going to go save the human race. Shut up.
which is funny because, like, if he didn't think there was a way, he's ready to just, set it all aside and say, let's go into the VR chamber and see what happens and enjoy what vacation time we have right now because the world's going to end.
At one point, he's like, hey, we'll just go to a planet and we'll just live on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Then the lieutenant that they picked up, Amanza, we need to talk about too. What did you guys think of Amanza?
I thought she was fairly well done. She was a little tropey as far as like the military person getting captured by their captors. But the thing is that even though they tied her up when she first got on board, they almost treated her like, look, we're in this situation that none of us are coming back from unless we work together. So do what you want. It'd be great if you helped. It felt fairly realistic as far as like if I were to put myself in a situation where escaping from the military, I happen to drag a military person along with me. Like, what would I do? It's like, well, if they try and sabotage the ship or try some sort of takeover, like, how is that going to get them home, right? So I think it fell apart a little bit when she was a little too willing to join their group, especially once they started getting closer to home space. But it made more sense to me when she found out. She's like, oh, I'm basically going to be labeled a criminal when I get home.
Yeah.
Wait, but she said that, but then every character she meets after that is like, hey, no, I can totally get you back in the military.
Yeah, but she could totally tell they were lying. Every single person that told her that were lying.
Mm-hmm. Like Sam Taylor. Yes, it was very clear.
We'll get to Sam. What did you think of her, Jeremy?
I really liked her. I thought that she had a good character arc. I enjoyed seeing her go from absolutely abhorring these Evertrancers as people who just give up their human bodies freely, as if there was a decision that they made at some point that they just didn't want to be human anymore. She had these assumptions that she walked in with, and as she gradually learned more and more about the characters and saw that, yeah, if they were really the criminals that you think they are, they would have just killed you, and they wouldn't have accepted your help or anything. The opportunity never would have happened because you were a danger on their ship. They would have just finished you off. They wouldn't have tried to enlist your aid. And eventually seeing her actually, go through these situations and develop a rapport and a relationship with them where she respected them. And that was really cool. I like that.
I like the character, and I do like her growth across the series. I think it's hard to say because I kind of understand why she switches to their team so fast. They're lost out in uncharted space, basically.
The Outer Rim.
They're being attacked by an unknown thing. And it's work together or survive.
You do realize that there's no net here, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Can someone explain to me what the net is?
It's like the internet, but for space.
Is that what they meant? It's not like
they can transmit data across the Miguel Jump network.
They transmit themselves across the Miguel.
No, because you could do movies. They're like, oh, we need to watch movies and stuff. We need the net to watch movies. Multiple characters call out. I won't have movies out here.
Yeah, but they also couldn't travel at the same jump speeds because they didn't have a destination they could sync up to because they weren't on the net. So I'm guessing, from what I can tell, it's like scattered oracult that goes out only so far and is held in a certain arrangement.
Right, but the humans use it for data, for warping plate points. Mm-hmm. As long as you're in this area, you can get everything.
Because you saw what they had to do when they were not on the net. They traveled by shooting a torpedo with an oracult warhead, and then they would teleport to the torpedo. So that means that essentially the net is a way for them to teleport from point A to point B without firing a torpedo.
So it's space Wi-Fi, space sci-fi Wi-Fi then,
and GPS,
plus hyperspace. Yes.
Fair
Without
enough.
it, you've got no hyperspace.
Wait, but can you use it to take out a super Star Destroyer? If you never mind.
Sure, if you want to throw the principles of strategy out the window.
Don't take the bait, Troy. Don't take the bait.
Yeah.
Hey, you're the one that threw the bait out.
Right?
So we kind of talk about it. They question her. They take her to the virtual reality, and while she's in there, she's in real world cutting her straps off because she has a spike on her nail.
Pinky blade.
She takes Maya and being called Aura as hostages.
This was great.
And but then they get attacked by these mines.
Well, before they do, she's like, "These are my demands," and Gray Man's like, "No,
boil them and eat them.
It's fine. I don't care."
Yeah. She's like, send us food. And he says, no, boil them and eat them. I don't care what you do. I love that.
That's so great.
But yeah, they get attacked by the same meteorites from before, or very similar meteorites before. So they have to go out and in the eye machines and defend the ship. And she actually jumps in hers, and Maya does as well, to help defend, so that they have time to shoot that rocket to jump to, because they're out in this wild space.
I like how they had to play pool with the asteroids.
Yep. Now, wait a second. This is after the planet has materialized the first time out here chasing them, right? Because those asteroids came from the planet in a big gust, right?
No, one of the moons.
Well,
right. Yeah,
it was a planet.
Wasn't as big as a planet. They keep calling it a planet. But you're right. It is moon size.
It was a moon at first, and then they started calling it a planet. But I'm pretty sure it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's hard because they can turn into dust, or they can reform into big size and take any shape they want.
The point is that it was not the original body that they pulled this huge piece of Oracle and Aura out of.
You're right. Yeah, that they called a planet, and these they called moons. Yeah. Until later, when they started calling these planets.
But basically, like you said, they're able to bounce them into each other, which almost kills Ido, but Rick manages to save him on the motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they are useful, just stupid. And they're able to get back on the ship and jump away to save them. Is this a good time to talk about the little girl, or should we wait a little bit longer?
I think if we're quick with the little girl, because there's not a lot to talk about at this point.
There is a lot to talk about, because we find out who the little girl is, and it makes no sense that she's acting like a little girl up till this point.
You know, if you've seen Shine, you'll see a much worse version of that. The one with Will Smith and the orc.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch that.
Don't watch it. It's horrible. It's horrible. But it's so much worse than this, because in that, spoiler alert, don't watch it, anybody. Spoiler alert, the lady that can't talk through the whole thing can talk just fine. And at the very end, she's like, oh, yes, I wasn't talking because this is not quite like that.
I can understand not having full control of your mental faculties, but why are
this girl didn't have any control of them.
Totally a child.
Yeah.
And she's worse than a child.
She's a grown woman.
No, she's worse than a child. It wasn't until there was a specific event that happened in the last 4 episodes or 3 episodes that allowed, it was the coalescing of all the Oracult particles that allowed her to reset. They even comment on it about how, she's talking because it reset. Right. She has access to these memories now. It wasn't that she had that all along before. She was a fractured personality before that could do nothing but laugh because she wasn't a brain.
Wasn't Jennifer yet?
She was a fractured piece of Jennifer.
Yeah.
Okay. Why does she look like a cat?
She looks like Aura because she obsesses about Aura. And as far as the tail and anything else, I don't know why.
I don't remember her having a tail and ears in the flashbacks. But
maybe that's just her personal eccentricities. I don't know.
She's a star child. Come on.
That's right. She's an Aurelian.
But the moon planet thing keeps chasing them, and they start they're like, well, we could just give the kid to the planet. It seems to want.
I love that. The military lady said that. Yeah, it was great.
Raymond's kind of for it. He's like, not a half bad idea.
Yeah.
Maya, of course, takes that very personally. She's, wants to save the world, so that's not going to fly with her.
Yeah.
We do find out some of his backstory here. He talks to Amanza about how he awoke in a regular eye machine on a prison ship for a while, and then the next time he awoke, he was escaping in a different eye machine, which is the one he's currently in. Sans scarf.
You're right. There is no scarf on it at that point.
So he went eye machine scarf shopping.
And has enough replacements for when he loses his left arm or gets part of the scarf blown off.
And also that thing is very resilient. It doesn't blow. It does move a little bit, because I thought maybe it's red sheet metal he just wrapped around but it does move a little.
Yep.
Just not very much. And they're trying to get back to normal space, and on their way there is a red ion cloud thing that they're like, oh yeah, we'll just comes up with this plan, we'll just go through it, no big deal. While they're going through, the dust starts coming in, and it turns out it's the same thing that's been chasing them, and it comes into the ship as dust and then is able to like form into rocks and start bashing things, and it's chasing after Aura. And so Maya and Lieutenant are helping her get away, and I like that all the iMachine characters had to download into small little janitor robots, basically, and
That was
so they could get into the human part of the ship and help defend. They are able to use the vacuum of space to suck this stuff out, but when it flies out, it actually grabs the small child, pulls her out, and they're like, oh, we got this child killed. But it turns out she can make a space bubble. And
Well, yeah,
because reasons.
she's not human. She's a more crystal.
when it came to the Oracle, and knowing that this girl came from the Oracle, I had no problem with her having magic, because the Oracle, it's like it can bend space time and do basically whatever we want it to do. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's basically a quantum particle. They also have, I thought it was really interesting that the shields that they have on the front of their ship, which the design of the ship is really weird. We were talking about it in the pre-show and how they have these arms. Well, the arms like come forward, and these cylinders extend and open up to make like satellite dishes that are actually bumpers, they call them, and shields. That those are also guides to a ram scoop, because they're talking about like gathering the hydrogen and using it as fuel.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool. Okay, so they've got ram scoop shields.
I like those shields. They were pretty cool, and I liked how versatile they were, and putting the 4 out in front of them. Ido had jumped back into his robot body and had jumped out to save Aura, but had not got there in time. But then, of course, she has a space bubble, so she's fine. When he touches her, he gets memories of him talking to her, and he's calling her Alice, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is literally my past, guys, I'm holding my past. Yeah, so this is when I thought Ido became interesting, because now he cares about his person, his past, who he is. It'll just start another debate, but I just don't feel like we get deep enough into the themes of who am I when I'm stuck in this body, and am I the person in my past without my memories, or now that I have new memories, am I a new person? And to exemplify that, I think Ghost in the Shell standalone complex like really takes very similar themes and pushes them to their limits, where this one is like, yeah, we're okay with just scratching the surface, just like dipping our toe in, oh, that feels good, and the show's done.
I think the show attempted to hit on too many things, so it didn't have time to explore any of those. I think where it did excel, though, was this idea of this space rock that we found. Is it worth? Is it worth the risk with this danger that humanity just doesn't know about? But one thing I was hoping that they would touch on was, when you download your consciousness into this machine, you don't have things like oxytocin, you don't have chemical reactions in your brain, you don't have hormones. So the idea that these ever transfers would have such high amounts of emotions at times, I felt that would have been a cool story note to hit, because I think that could have been explored.
What is a human without the chemistry involved?
Right. And would that affect their personality? And also, would it affect their decision process? Because obviously emotions can play a big part into someone's motivations and decisions they make.
Yeah, I totally agree. The chemistry was one of the things that was bugging me about the iMachines the whole time, is they're clearly not putting their brain in there. So if all they're doing is mapping neurons onto some kind of electrical processes, I don't see how they would remain stable. I see them, falling apart over time and becoming a robotic version that loses all emotion. And it also bothered me because I couldn't understand how you've got that, like, let's say the orichalc transports things, right? If it transports, they mentioned with the girl that she transports in oxygen, right? And so when she transports in the oxygen, and she transports out the carbon dioxide, she's recycling it. But that's because she's special. So you can't assume that the same thing's happening just because a person's inside of an eye machine, right? So none of it, I can't find a way to make sense of that logically from the science that they present. And that's actually been something I've been thinking about with this the whole time I was watching it that was bugging me. So yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. But I don't know, when it comes to the idea of identities and pursuing that and that theme, I think that they didn't want to go for as much of a complex message as something like Ghost in the Shell would do and did. I think they wanted a simpler approach to it, and I kind of like that they did that. It was a smaller dose in this, and so a lot of other things got to be done. But I did get enough of it between the main villain and the main Ito hero character, and then getting the variations of takes on it from Rick and Carla, and, you know, seeing from multiple perspectives the same concept in the same situation, let it be fleshed out enough, I thought. It wasn't the core, the central theme of the anime. Frankly, I don't really know. Like, maybe it was the core central theme, but just not as much as Ghost in the Shell.
I'll tell you the central theme when we get to the end.
Okay. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear what you think. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it though. It was enough, I thought.
Okay. I just disagree with everything you just said.
I wanted to make sure that you got your argument.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
They are still under attack by the rocks in the next episode, and another ship shows up, and this is not the Alliance. They are
Observers.
The observers. There's a separate military that monitors the Alliance.
Sounds basically like CIA. That's what it reminds me of. Because they're a different part of the military. Right. They're just not the military.
And this is where we meet Sam. Now, I'm going to tear this Band-Aid off. He's a clone of one of the main scientists. But who is Sam? Like, who's the personality in there? Because we find out the other person wearing the clone makes sense. Do we ever find out who Sam is? He's just a random guy.
I'm pretty sure it's still the same dude. He just was in that body to get out there.
No, because
I don't think so, because the other guy was watching a video.
Adams had to watch the video before he found this out.
Yeah.
I don't think he got his memories back.
Oh, crap. You're right. They make a point in the first episode to say that if you die while in an eye machine and your body is within range of being transferred back, you lose all the data that had occurred since your backup.
So it's a copy of Adams.
Yes.
But if so, then but that's another thing that doesn't work, because they don't do copies. They only do transfers. But they do backups.
So hold on.
You can do backups, and Adams cheats.
Adams cheats, so that could work. Yeah.
So this is how I understood it, right? I think Adams transfers into this clone, right? And then with the clone, he goes on the observer ship and goes out to them. When he dies, his original body wakes up with a backup that was taken at the time of transfer. So he has no memories from the time of transferring into that clone forward. So he has to watch the tape to get caught up. And I think that happened because he was too far away to do a mind dump back. And the reason I think that is because he knows who Ido is. Mm-hmm. Or Ito. Nobody else does. Literally nobody else in the entire universe knows who Ito is.
Unless you're one of Ito's clones. Then you might know.
I thought Adams was the only one in Ito's clones.
It's his body clone, but not his consciousness. So
right, it's his third clone, though. And Sam was like his second or something. So
all of his clones are mindless. They don't have a personality in them.
Well, I don't know. It's weird. I have a little bit of an issue with the idea that he would know to pull out the backup, because it doesn't happen for anybody else. I mean, bodies just get left in the military. They could pull that person back out and they've got their soldier back, get them in another machine. Instead, they're like, no, send the body with it. Or, I don't know.
Okay. So I think it's fair to say that it's got to be some form of Adams. There's probably a better explanation in like a manga somewhere, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But while we can come up with plausible explanations, because I think Jason's is plausible.
Yeah, I think you've got something there. It's just frustrating.
But it is a little bit of a plot hole because they don't actually tell us who Sam was based on what we find out about the clones later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Basically, he comes aboard. It's like, hey, we can get you home. Ido's like, no, because he wants to protect Alice, his past, and he doesn't trust this guy. So this guy goes nuts and kidnaps Alice and kidnaps Maya and starts flying off. The rocks start attacking the observer ships. Ito goes to stop Sam, and Sam's like, wait, it's you. It's you're supposed to be dead. And Ito's like, wait, do you know me? And then they have to run away, and he's crushed by rocks. And is this where they jump out of space while they're in warp?
Yeah, they leave the observer behind.
Yeah, because Ido jumps out, and then the rocks just like form a planet around him, like instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So suck him in.
He's got Maya and Alice, and yeah, he just gets covered by rocks. And then the next episode is them trying to get out. Which is, it's okay, yeah, I'm fine, but there's these two human people that have only hours of oxygen left. Meanwhile, Rick's on the outside trying to save them, which was cool. I did like Rick's thing of, I'll get the rocks to chase me. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of rocks, but I like the idea, Rick.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
At least he's trying, I guess.
Yep.
And also, Ito's escape attempt as well was amazing. With he would throw the daggers and they would explode and it'd make a bigger hole.
Oh, you're starting to really like this ninja mining.
Ninja mining.
It's like we're watching Naruto all of a sudden.
So at the end of this, so just so everyone knows, the Stealthy shows up and helps get them out. But the important thing that actually happens in this episode is that in the planet is a recon ship, a drone ship.
Yeah, it was a recon drone.
And they retrieved the log from it, and it basically reveals that the Alliance is aware that there's these sentient warping rocks out there that just go around collecting oracles, and that they are a major threat to humanity. And they've been keeping it under wraps. Do I have that right? Because you learn this in a couple of phases, and they have a couple conversations about it, and I want to make sure I understood that right.
No, I think you nailed it on the head. They don't know who, because I don't know if they're sentient, but they seem programmed.
Right.
And they have a self-learning programming to them.
They were sent by another culture to mine oracle.
And they have no leads whatsoever on this other culture. And
but the rocks don't consider humans like there's no consideration. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I need the oracle. I'll just kill you to get it. There's no thought.
So from what I heard, it was garbage collecting. Like they were talking about how the oracle was actually seen as not a positive thing, but a dangerous thing. And it was garbage that these rocks were supposed to collect because the oracle was considered like nuclear waste to this culture. That's how it was portrayed. First time I heard him talk about it.
There's a great scene that comes up in the next one. They want to figure out about the doctor they heard in the message or heard about in the message, who's Dr. Kane Aizukawa. Mm-hmm. And so Ido's like, hey, let's go investigate that, even though they wanted to run away, but like, no, Ido wants to investigate, so we just do whatever he says.
You said that so condescendingly.
I did. Yeah. To be fair, they actually completely explained that he has done so much for this group that basically they will follow him into hell at this point. That he that's just, even though he's like the newest member, he's been such a boost to this team that they're like, yeah, whatever Ito wants, we're there for him. He's part of the family, and he matters as much as anyone else. We will die on his hill if that's what it takes.
And I think that this is roughly the time when they do that calling out that you mentioned, where they're like, oh, he's changing, because Ito says something. He says like, thanks, or something that.
It'll happen in episode 9, and the line will be, is he starting to change?
Okay. Yeah.
No,
I don't think it was that strong in the subbed version. I think they said like
that's
he's different or something like that.
Okay, so when I said back in my early review that this storytelling was janky, what I really mean is there's almost no subtlety to anything, and I did get a feeling the English dub was adding to that. That everything was just
I
like,
could see that.
It's a blunt force over your head stating plot points. Hey, I like this girl. Hey, he's having character development. They would say lines. Oh, the other one is Rick. And I thought I was the hotshot pilot. Like, you don't need to call out your character trait out loud. It's okay. We got it.
I think he actually did that in the sub version too.
And that's
Rick is guilty.
one time that happens, but again, is he starting to change? There's just a couple plot points that they just really are not subtle about, and it just kind of struck me as there isn't a whole lot of minutia to the story. While the story is very good, it's bold, it's loud, it's here's a plot point, here's a character development.
Yep.
Okay, but I really want to talk about this because they basically attack an Alliance ship using solar flares that they're warping into it. But the best part is when the commander on this ship goes, "How was I fooled by a group of simple miners?"
Yeah.
I wrote, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good. I like that." But the whole point is to get Carla into the computer core of the Alliance ship, and they're able to do that. She hacks it, and they leave her behind. So while she finds out the information she wants, which we find out this masked figure who's been appearing throughout this whole anime, we're going to talk about him more. He lets her into the access. He wants her to find this info, and then Miguel jumps in front of her in an eye machine, and that's all we see. And then she comes out of the ship and joins the team. That's when you realize, oh, things are bad. Carla's not exactly being a team player right now.
Made me wonder if she'd always been reporting on him.
They did say at one point, like, you always play it safe or something. Like, Carla was always a trump card they had in their pocket just in case, but I don't know how they knew to have her. Or maybe they just found out through research. It wasn't super clear how they knew where Carla's body was. Did they steal her body, or did they just happen to find it?
It's a lot of body finding that goes on in this anime.
Especially like in all of space. Hey, look, her body's right there. Good thing I looked in that one spot.
Yeah.
Well, in her backstory, her body gets Miguel jumped out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe the survivors of whoever was Miguel'd out with just returned her body to Earth, and they weren't sure what to do with it, and then what's-his-face got a hold of it.
Mm-hmm. I do think that the pods that they're in while they're downloaded to the eye machines are really weird, because in her case, like 10 years and she's fine. She gets up, a little bit clumsy, but she's not withered or anything, walking around, and like, is it
space
like
magic
time too? Come on now.
Space magic.
Or called as teleporting time out of the chamber.
Didn't you see the suit that she was in? That thing's feeding her muscles.
That must be what it is. And massaging them. Yep.
So we start, like I said, we've been seeing this bad guy the whole time, and I haven't been really bringing him up because he mostly kind of just reviews what has been happening, and he talks to this mysterious old creepy dude. But in this scene, in the next episode, he's talking about how this evil rock stuff is a threat, and he's going to gather all the aura cult and use it to defeat it. And the old guy's like, that'll doom us? We need that? The economy runs on it? And he's like, no, I'm going to save the human race with this. And this old guy's like, you're mean just like Kane? And he's like, whoa, you take that back. I'm not like Kane. That'll come into play in a minute. So Ido and Carla and Maya and Aura, who's now Alice, go to this scientific facility where this doctor is. When they get there, Carla reveals, hey, I betrayed you. I'm actually working with these guards that showed up. Ido kills all the guards. But then this masked man appears, and he's like, hey, this is the body of Dr. Kane Aizawa. But I'm not Kane Aizawa. You are, Ido. I'm in your body. You're in that. Isn't that great? And then Carla, here's your body. And
I thought this reveal was pretty great, actually.
It is pretty good. So they reveal that they start fighting, and his eye machine is really stupid because it's like a king knight thing, and it literally has a magic wand that shoots green laser blast. When they've had guns and motorcycles, he has
just let it happen.
Yeah. It's his ego. It's like he thinks of himself as a king with a scepter. It's perfect for him.
Mm-hmm. The ninja versus a knight.
A king knight.
With a staff.
Like,
that's right.
Have weapons that can teleport the sun in, and this guy's weapon is it's fine.
So it's like once you get to a certain point of technology, it's about style more than it is about what you have to do. It's like, can I make it a scepter? I can. Why not?
Come on, Troy, you love it.
You know you do. If it was a bunch of emotional girls doing it, you'd be like, oh, their emotions are so strong.
Jeremy, if a mech and mech warrior carried a scepter onto the battle as a weapon, how would you feel about that?
The Axeman's pretty close, and if you pick up another mech's arm, that works.
No, instead of like a gun that's mounted to its shoulder, like
no, literally, the Axeman carries an axe.
Right, that's fine. But instead of like a gun that's part of the body and part of the internal system, they just have this scepter that also happens to fire a gun that they have to hold in their hand.
I don't know. I don't think it would bother me that much.
I thought your biggest thing about MechWarrior is that it's the practicality of how the weapons are all part of the system, and this just seems so. No.
It's the concept that every designer has their own unique and consistent way of making the mechs. To me, and so like they have some mechs that actually carry guns into combat, and they can drop the guns when they're out of ammo. They're mechs. Why are they carrying a rifle? But they are. This isn't Gundam. It's BattleTech. But they do. And they have other mechs that carry, like, katanas into combat and attack with them. Why? Because it's awesome.
I'm going to stand by scepters are dumb.
Oh, I agree they're dumb, but I think it was for style.
Yeah, and I get the king thing, the ego, but anyway, we should get to what really happened. So they're fighting. This guy, his real name is Adams. He puts Carla back in her body, and then he puts Kane, Ido, back into this clone body. Because he reveals, hey, I've been cloning you over and over again, so that... Because apparently, Kane's brain works better with the eye machines, especially the mask that he wore.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of extra neurons or something.
And also, like, there's a bunch of latent information that's stored in the consciousness of the clone that he then gains access to when he gets transferred into it. So he gets a bunch of memories back.
Anyway, when Ido gets back into the Kane clone body, he's shown his memories, and it's like, hey, I remember. Well, yeah, you just saw it, but the truth was, okay, so the whole story is he developed eye machines. It wasn't quite ready. Alice got sick. He was friends with the mom and with Adams. They were all a group. They put Alice into an eye machine, but it didn't go right. She actually went into the Oracle instead. Now, was that intentional?
He says it was later, but it's weird.
Okay, so we get to a scene where it's Kane and Adams talking, and Kane is like, hey, basically, I don't care about humans. I've been using, all my friends I use for experimentation, and they're talking about how they're going to use the Oracle to stop these evil rocks. He's like, but that'll kill 90% of the humans. He's like, great, that's a great experiment. What do I care about 90%? As long as the human race survives, isn't that the end goal? And my experiment will have results. And it really shows that Kane is like a sociopath evil guy, and so Adams pushes him into an eye machine and downloads his brain poorly into an eye machine too. Then that's what erases his memories.
On an exile ship.
Yes.
And then that exile ship just goes out into deep space.
I don't get that. Like, why is an exile ship filled with empty eye machines? Like,
I have a feeling they weren't empty.
Yeah. You think that they were all like prisoners condemned to?
Yeah.
So we're being told that this King guy was the villain and Adams is the savior. Meanwhile, Adams is running around like, I'll kill you. and he's like, I'm gonna save humanity, and Ido is like, look, I just want to save my friends. I still don't care about humanity, and it kind of gets jumbled, but everyone's objective is, and whether they're good or bad. But in this fight, they're literally saying, I am myself, and I will kill you so I can be myself again.
I don't remember it being that.
I literally wrote down, I am myself.
I think it's the dub. I think it's the dub.
Again, the subtlety is not there. But the fight was kind of cool. It is probably one of the better fights in the anime. It's not really a fighting anime, just so you know. It's more about the evil rocks, which I do really like the evil rocks. When he manages to beat him with Carla's help, so she's back on the team, because he gets back into his robot body, he wins the fight, and then he goes back to the human body, and he's like, hey guys, it's okay, I got Alice, and Alice is happy because she recognizes him, and then Adams comes out in his real body and shoots him in the back.
It all made sense. It was good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the ability to teleport, you could just be like, yeah, hey, just in case, let's bring up my old body, and let's bring one clone body, and let's bring Carla's body. He just traveled with a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
This isn't weird. What are you talking about?
He steals Alice and runs away. And so I want to talk about Adams and the real Kane's Isaac Al. Probably not so much Kane, because I honestly have a hard time getting a beat on him. And it kind of sounds like I'm not the only one. Was he really an evil villain? Was he lying to push an agenda? It's hard to know. But what did you guys think of our villain, Adams?
I loved that he ended up being the bad guy, in quotes, because all of his motivations were great. He actually saved a ton of people by getting rid of Kane. He was manipulating this multi-trillion-dollar corporation to potentially save the human race. But he did it all in the tropiest anime villain way possible. Like, he comes out in this ship, and the first thing I thought was, that is like pure Final Fantasy villain right there. Like, absolute Final Fantasy villain. This ship is enormous. It's got just an enormous payload. And of course, they aren't real warheads. They're a way to, like, you know, and
no, they're copied. He shoots himself.
Yes.
He shoots versions of himself.
Like,
he's basically inseminating all of the.
That was my thought. I wasn't going to say it, but
it's pure. It's like they went, okay, what are all the things a villain does, and let's make a structure out of that. But then let's put good intention in all of it. And I thought that was great. I actually really enjoyed watching this character. I didn't like him just because he ended up being such like a conflicted / villain.
He's clearly the villain, but every time you're like, he was trying to save everyone. That's weird.
Yeah, his fault came down to that Kane realized what they really needed to do, and he wouldn't listen because he felt he was the grandiose savior of humanity.
Wait, hold on a second, because he's like, wait, Kane, you have the solution. And Kane's like, yeah, I'm not telling you.
Yeah, Kane was being a dick.
And this is Ido Kane. This is still current Kane. And he's like, no, just tell me how to win. No, I'm not telling you. You couldn't handle it. I don't want you to know.
You can't handle the truth.
Yep.
It's so bizarre.
Okay, it's really weird, and I think I see why he did it, because in the end we see that it's this, you know, it's love. Love saves everything. You know, got to show the machine love so the machine can learn love, and once the machine learns love, everybody will be safe. You know?
You just about made Troy spit his drink all over his
so happy you said that.
You know, and so obviously this guy who is a megalomaniac and who is now saying, oh, I love the human race so much, and that's why I'm trying to save them, and Kane hated the human race, and he's like oversimplifies the entire situation and paints himself as the savior and wants to be the martyr, to the point where he even shoots his own head and says, boy, I hope this works because I'm betting everything on it. He kills his own human body because he's going to stay in the eye machine and be known by everybody else. With a smile on his face. Like, there's some really funny ridiculousness to it, but I think that kind of goes to give us a sense of how broken this person is. that Adam has been completely destroyed by what he's experienced, not only with his friend Kane and what he had to do to his own friend and what he had witnessed, and then what he subsequently did with Jennifer, teleporting her out, like all of those decisions, and then working with this politician, this evil old man that's really creepy and has like a painted wall of human skeletons standing in fire over human skulls. Like hell, basically, I guess.
So the old man is called Hakabi.
Oh,
and what was the deal with that?
He was just someone who was able to manipulate politics, and therefore he was useful. But he was also wealthy enough to be able to download his brain into new bodies and live immortally.
He was being painted as like an Emperor Palpatine style character with zero payoff.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Hey, more baiting of Troy here.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, Snoke. Go on.
I had to edit that sound. That was way too loud. Okay, and also I did not like the eye machine gun. The gun to kill yourself and all.
I know, what a way to download.
Well, because he talked about like, oh, we have this mask and it only works on this thing, but also now I have this gun.
It only works on my body.
Anyway,
but you're right. There's no payoff to it, but I kind of liked that it showed how that character he wasn't important. He was merely a tool that Adam was using. Adam was really the mastermind behind it, and that's why he thought himself such a strong competition and even superior to Kane now, is that he manipulated this to the point where he even was able to kill the old man because he sent some kind of detonation code to the old man's head. There was like a dent, and the old man managed to download, but then the place blew up, and the old man, who's now in a little boy body, and the girl that's standing next to him that we've never seen before, and they're talking, and then they die.
Did you notice the line in her neck where it was stitched?
Yes, I did. I didn't know if that was clothing or stitching.
No, it looked like stitching. Okay, but where I have so many questions, but I'm not going to go through them all. I just want to ask like one. Where was this location, and why did it blow up?
Oh, some planet, and Adam was rich and wealthy enough and cunning enough to establish a bomb.
You're assuming that.
Yeah,
that's what everything paints.
The anime did not say, though. It never explained.
It didn't even imply.
Oh, I think it implied it. Because if Adam sent a detonation sequence to kill the old man, surely he knew that if the old man escaped and managed to get into a young body, he'd blow it up.
The old man said his body had a heart attack.
That is not what it said in the sub. In the sub, it said Adam sent a code and killed me.
Oh, no, yeah. In the dub, it's like, I got a heart attack from the news of what Adam said.
Nope. In the sub, it's very clear that Adam deliberately killed him.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that left me with the impression of an implication.
Fair enough.
The Alliance fleet is preparing for what they're now. They changed the name of this darn thing so many times, but they're now calling it Rajit. And they basically, the entire Alliance fleet is there, and they have all their ore called loaded into these super expensive missiles that will teleport things away, and they have it set up so that it'll hit the rocks and teleport them into a black hole.
I hated the music, but I loved this whole sequence.
Yeah, the music.
It didn't seem right for it.
Anyway, at the same time, Kane crawls into an eye machine as he's dying and lets his body die and re-uploads and into ID0 the machine and confirms, "I am ID0 the excavator." He's been saying that for a while now. "I am ID0 the excavator."
Yep.
And so he joins the fight. The Alliance starts to lose. They're winning at first, but then more rocks are showing up, and the Alliance starts to lose. And that's when Adam shoots himself, puts himself into an eye machine, and is like, "Hey, I have this super ship, and also because I studied Alice, this little girl, I know how to make crystal versions of myself, and I've loaded them into these guns, and I'm shooting them into the rocks, and they're going to tell the rocks to go."
Self-destructing sperm. Yep.
ID0 shows up and is like, "Hey, great plan. One problem: these rocks are smart, and they're going to learn. You basically downloaded a virus, and they're going to have an antivirus in about 5 minutes." And that happens. The rocks come back, start reforming. Ito grabs Alice and runs away.
I did kind of think it was weird that Adam shows up with this planet-busting battleship, and everyone in the military knew it was a class of ship, yet there were no others present on this grand last stand of Terran military. So, like, was this the only battle-cracking planet battleship?
It's also interesting that Adams has no identity in his new eye machine because they're like, hey, you don't have an ID. And he's like, yeah, we'll worry about that after I save the day.
Yep.
Basically,
Such a villain thing to say.
I will be God after this. Don't worry about it.
Right.
He even says, man, the human race is the worst, but I love it. I'm going to save it. Except he is actually trying to save it. He's not like
genuinely
trying to save it like other villains when they purge him.
Yep. Now, I do think that his motivation has now become like, I want to be recognized and glorified for my saving it, because all this time, every good thing he's done has been attributed to Kane.
Right. Even the military says that, why isn't Kane here? I wish Kane was here.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think he does want to surpass Kane in his reputation and everything. So he also tells Ido, before Ido leaves, that he had downloaded Jennifer into the Oracle. And this is right when Alice starts talking. So Ido takes Alice back to the ship, and they realize that she is Jennifer. You guys already explained that to me. Thank you for that. And she says the real Alice is close. She's basically in that giant rock formation that the reawakened rocks have formed this super weapon now. And she's like, yeah, she's in there. Adams launches himself into it and basically downloads his brain into the rock. He's like,
so crazy.
I'll just take control of the rock. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Then our heroes come up with their plan. They call the Alliance military. They're like, look, we need all your Oracle. We will fix this. And they basically have the same plan. They all go in, they fight their way into the core, and Jennifer and Ido download themselves into the rock. And then there's this whole, oh, I'm losing my identity to the rock. And wait, I remember my name. Wait, that wasn't my real name. I'm actually Ido. And then Adam shows up. And he's like, yeah, let's take control of this thing. And Adam's like, no, that's not what I hear. I'm here to teach you how to love. And by reuniting Alice and Jennifer, who's a mom and daughter of the backstory, the rock learns that humans have emotions and decides to leave us alone. And the theme is emotions are the best.
I will debate that. I believe that the robot rock had specific algorithms to recognize life worth protecting based on whether or not it has love.
They call it out in the dub that we just showed them that we are a sentient species, basically. Please destroy us.
Okay. Yep.
I think
love saved the day, and you can't deny that.
It's true.
My favorite part of this entire sequence wasn't anything to do with that, but it was Adams and Kane/Ido's final confrontation. And Adam's realization that Kane is dead and that he has no one or nothing to push and fight against anymore. And he starts to cry, but it's like this crushing reality that hits him. And I thought they actually portrayed it really well, that he all of a sudden, he is now grieving the loss of Kane. Even though Ido's standing right in front of him, he realizes that's not Kane anymore. And I thought that came across really well.
Yeah.
So everyone makes it out. We get our big outro. Ido, he at first they just have his robot body, and then they send him home. I think it's Adams who's like, "You need to go back. I'll stay here with Jennifer and Alice," who invite him to stay. So they're going to be stuck on the rock forever, which is basically its own VR world inside that mind. They had a name for it, but it doesn't matter. And then we get our big fancy epilogue,
which was interesting. I didn't expect it at all.
Was there anything really unexpected in it?
There was nothing special. It just had a style that it was reminiscent
They did
of
that pastels color again.
Yeah. Well, and even just how it's telling you this person went on to do this and this person went on to do this.
It's a documentary.
Yeah, it was just very odd, but fun at the end. It was nice.
Okay, question. Does Rick and Amanza end up together?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they do. Which is weird.
There was that one scene where he hits on her, and instead of yelling at him like every time, everyone looks at her for her to scold him, and she doesn't. She's like, "Oh yeah, oops."
Yep. They're gonna go grind some robot steel.
That was my second question. Thank you. And then I think the final thing is they keep being pirate miners.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good portion of them continue to do that. Yeah.
What I did like is that their dog thing, it was actually ID0 who killed it and turned it into a night machine.
I don't understand how they got a hold of it then. There was one other thing about this that kind of frustrated me, and that is that, so Ito is stuck inside of this exile robot, and he can't move or anything, but this thing just happens to go by, and it has this robot, this eye machine in it, and it like sucks his mind out of the exile robot, and then he's like, yes, I'm in this robot, but doesn't remember that he sent this thing out just in case he was ever exiled.
They were like, it was his robot he made, and he made it so that it wouldn't have an ID, and it would mess him up if he got into it, so it would protect certain things.
Sounded like a Band-Aid to me. It really did. It didn't fit very well.
I didn't understand it. I can agree with that. I think if you guys don't have any thoughts on the epilogue, we can go to our ending reviews.
No, I think that's good.
All right, Jason, why don't you start us off?
I really enjoyed this anime. It definitely has some problems, and some of the characters are a bit tropey. And some of the themes I wish they had explored a little better, but it is what it is. And I think for what it is, I'm going to give it a 4 because I had fun with it. I would definitely give it a 3. I feel it's a little higher than a 3, so I'm going to be generous this week and go with a 4.
Oh, well, your pick, you're generous with. That's
we see how it works.
That's really strange.
How about you?
I'm really torn between a 3 and a 4. It just can't quite reach a 4 for me. I got to give it a 3. I really like so much of it, and I mean it's mechs. I love mechs. I can't go wrong with mechs. It's awesome, and I thought they did a really good job. Well, yeah, you can if you're Michael Bay, right? But it's it was really enjoyable. But there were a few little nagging issues I had with certain plot points, and some of the I have a really hard time with love being the answer to an alien robot at the end. It's just really hard. So yeah, I don't know. It's just not quite satisfactory enough. So close to a 4, but yeah, it's a 3.
Isn't that the way you beat evil AI? You teach it love.
I don't know.
Sure
Not in any story I would write.
Love it.
I'm going to actually give it a 3.
Wow.
I would actually be leaning towards a 2, but I think the ending and the twist at the end and the themes really do pay off, despite all of the issues I brought up. I think the only thing is, I think in a month I'm not going to remember this anime. But I would recommend it if the technology intrigues you, if the themes intrigue you, then I think it's worth watching. And I wouldn't have said that going into it at all. So it won me over in that part. It's just I've seen a lot of anime about mechs, and I've seen anime take the themes and I feel do better with them. So it's not something I personally recommend to everyone. But like I said, if the things we talked about are your bag, I think there's a fun ride in there for you. Okay. Our next anime is also about rocks.
Yes!
It's called Houseki no Kuni. And it's about gem people that fight, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love geology and rocks, so when I saw this, it looks a little weird, but I really want to see their take on what these rocks would be like if they were people.
Okay. Fantastic. So that's what we'll be watching. It's 12 episodes. And then the anime after that, I'm hoping will be special, but we'll see how that goes. And then next week is our questions, but we're going to be recording that before you can submit them by the time you've heard this. So sorry. But if you do have questions, go ahead and still send them in. We'll figure out a way to answer you. If you want to comment on this anime or any other thing we've talked about, you can reach us on our Twitter @Baka Podcast or email theanimebakaclub@gmail.com or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. If you're waiting for the next Ghost Stories episode, it'll be coming soon.
Usually on my week.
Yeah, we heard.
By the way, I am loving that anime. Not because it's any good, but I get really good laughs to it. So.
Yep.
If you haven't checked those episodes out, then you're one of the few who haven't. Very popular. Look, we gotta get going. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for listening. Let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
I want an eye machine.
Sayonara.